So the first roast is actually is not on the list. It's turned out I wanted it to be a roast, but it's for Dr. Jadija, and there's just really not much roasting material. So Dr. Jadija, a couple of things I did find out about her is apparently her kids do refer to her as the mean one. Of course, he's married to Sadiq Gill, who would make Mother Teresa the mean one as well. But I can see it, Neil, get your schoolwork done. And then she comes to the residency program, and she realizes she has to be that other person. So to all of our residents, she's become the warm mother of our residency program. She has become Little Miss Sunshine. And I stole this off a recommendation, knowing that this is one of Dr. Jadija's favorite approaches. This is a great piece of literature, by the way. So I am going to read you a little bit. I want you just to really imagine what residency was like here before Dr. Jadija joined us. Welcome to Misery Land. We say welcome, but there really isn't very much welcoming about it. It's the most miserable place in the world. When the birds wake up in the morning in Misery Land, they don't start singing. They start crying. Oh, it's really an awful place. And the king of Misery Land, now me, he's even worse. He sits down on his throne all day long. I don't have the throne yet. Can you work on that? With tears streaming down his face. Oh, I'm so unhappy, he keeps sobbing over and over again. And I'm going to skip a few pages here. And unfortunately, I know you're looking forward to getting this. It is available on Amazon. I'm going to spoil it. Because in the end, it becomes laughter land, which is what I see every day when I go to Connell 10 in the residence. I take care of So Dr. Jadija has been the Associate Program Director now for about 8 years and has really become a strong influence and a true mother figure in the program. And I think many people would recognize this themselves, that it's really the mother that holds the family together. And I would say that I look at our residents, and I do think it is a family of residents. And Dr. Jadija is definitely the warm mother, loving mother of the family. She's also the kind of mother who's after grandkids, as it turns out. Discovered after, I don't know, I won't say how many drinks. Dr. Jadija has been giving advice to prospective mothers in our program this entire time. Dr. Jadija, I'm thinking about do it now. Make babies, as many as you want. Don't worry about residency. It's like, that was what a very insightful moment for me. It explains a lot of what's gone on in our residency program over the last several years. She's been a really wonderful and supportive figure in our program, and particularly for me in starting this year. And I want to thank her for all the contributions she's made. She's stepping down at the end of this year, but will still be really engaged with the program through our resident wellness program. Could everyone give her a huge round of applause? So I'm going to go over there and give her a hug. Let the roasts begin.
So I'm going to take first speaker's privilege and try to hide away the flags from Claudia and ignore them regardless. So, so Brian Chan is the first victim. And I was both honored and insulted when Brian asked me to roast him. Honored because it is an honor to get up here in front of everybody and actually speak about one of our residents who succeeded in going forward. It's worth noting that Brian's going forward into GI at McMaster, but nonetheless, we'll try to honor what we can. Brian then went forward to insult me while he invited me to speak. He said, well, all the toasts in the past have been rather lame. Can you please step it up a notch? So here we go. It's probably also worth noting that I have tenure, so I really have nothing to lose, Brian. So the talks usually go when you say some jokes, make someone laugh, and then say some good things. I'm going to shake it up a little bit. Brian's a good guy. He's a good resident. He's going to McMaster for GI. Yay, Brian. So Brian gave me some sources for information, including his girlfriend, his friends, and some high school classmates. So I'm fairly well informed at this point, because it's a little bit hard to get a read on him unless you spend a lot of time with him. Brian has been described by a number of his friends as a hipster. And so me being of a certain age now, I had to actually investigate what a hipster was. I had some ideas, and I found two definitions. One seems to be from the Urban Dictionary, which seems to be written by hipsters. They're independent thinking, or they value independent thinking, they're counterculture, and they're progressive in their politics. And then on Wikipedia, one of my colleagues, Yappy Lowe's favorite websites, they're called pretentious, overly trendy, and effete, which is sort of lacking strength and courage. So, being an evidence-based guy that I am, i.e. nerd, we shall look at the evidence. So the evidence for being a trendy, hip guy, his girlfriend said they went to hike in a rainforest, and what he thought would be the most appropriate attire was skinny jeans and a hipster t-shirt. Further on the trendiness, he has his affliction known as FOMO, F-O-M-O. Who knows what FOMO is? Oh, a lot of people. Apparently, I'm not hip at all.
That's difficult.
So what is it? Wait.
Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out. So if Brian hears that something is cool or something is happening or there's some new restaurant open, he's keen, he has to be there, he has to be the first there to tell you. So I've been paid off by Samantha to say that Iceland is now cool and hip, and the restaurant Aloe in Toronto is where you need to be right now. So that's about all the evidence for. We have a fair amount of evidence against, and I'll put it forward to you. So Brian's pretty keen on clubbing. And again, as a poor Newfie boy, don't care. My version of clubbing and Brian's version of the clubbing are somewhat different. 25-cent beer doesn't really count, apparently. Not even buying beer or buying a gin and tonic by the glass is good enough. You need to buy it by the bottle. And so he gets bottle service. And not only that, he takes pictures of the bottles he's drinking and then takes pictures of the bills from the bottles that he's drinking and sends them to his friends to let them know how good a time he's having. Samantha's been with him for 5 years. He apparently has had at least 5 hairstyles during that time, including an attempt at a man bun, which made him look more like Pebbles from Flintstones than a true man bun. He's quite keen on his clothing, and I heard him discussing with my colleague, Dr. Bashara, different shoes, and there's a new 705, I think, out in a slightly different color. They're very excited about this. Not only that, he also likes to tell people how expensive his clothes are. But it comes down to one dinner as an R1, apparently, and there was a CARMS interview dinner where he felt the need to be a little bit different. Still don't care. So I've got some props. So Brian, when going out for dinner with potential recruits, he felt the need to wear a backward baseball cap and a sports jersey. And then was offended when the chief resident said, perhaps this is not the most appropriate attire for your dinner. And he's held that grudge ever since. So I learned two things about Brian through that story. One, he does not know how to dress for a recruitment dinner. And two, he can hold a grudge rather well. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to ask us to raise our glasses to Brian, who I'm sure is going to be an excellent gastroenterologist. And Brian, you can pay me later for not mentioning Tijuana at all. Come on up.
I would like to start by props to Dr. Hookey for really stepping up his game this year. That was really well done. So a tough act to follow, and I obviously did not bring enough props because I don't have a baseball cap or a jersey. But I am here tonight to roast Dr. Troy Clemens. At least that's what I call him. But it turns out he has a number of other nicknames that he's acquired over the years. He is the oldest of three brothers, and as younger siblings tend to do, they have coined many other nicknames for him, including Trog, Tron, Electron, Tronald. But they're not the only people to get creative with Troy's name. At his white coat ceremony at Memorial University, he was introduced as Tony Clemens as he marched across the stage preparing to enter his clinical clerkship. Interestingly, none of those nicknames have really caught on here in Kingston. But I think that's because here Troy doesn't really need a nickname. His reputation precedes him. I'm not sure if any of you guys had a chance to attend the Christmas rounds. If you did go to rounds this year, you may have seen a skit that featured Troy, where the punchline seemed to be something about, hey man, is that a banana in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? When I started asking around for stories about Troy to prepare for this roast, a lot of people replied, oh, you mean the well-endowed resident. Overall, I guess that's not a bad reputation to have. It's probably better than the reputation he earned himself at Camp Walden. Troy was working there as a camp counselor one summer, and at the end of staff training days prior to the arrival of the campers, the young staff decided to rent a few buses and go into town to hit it up at one of the local bars. Troy went to the bar and enjoyed himself, but unfortunately, the bus ride home was not nearly as enjoyable. Unfortunately, the alcohol may have fueled some motion sickness, and Troy vomited out the window. Now, all the windows in the bus were down in hopes that the breeze would sober up some of the residents. And unfortunately, his vomit at those high speeds immediately vaporized, came back in the window, and the staff member behind him still will not speak to him. Anyways, besides his reputation for his member and digestive pyrotechnics, Troy's friends and family describe him as friendly, kind, and compassionate. These are traits that I have witnessed working with him on CTU. Now, his brothers didn't want this roast to get all too sappy, so they were also quick to share that he can be quite a ditz sometime, with one memorable incident when he locked his keys in the car at a driving test center while trying to pass his G-Class license. He did have to call CAA in order to get his car door open, and I'm guessing he passed. I don't know. His brothers also mentioned some food idiosyncrasies. Specifically, Troy absolutely hates cheese. But on that note, I'm going to end your roast with some cheesy advice. Troy, follow your passions, stay true to yourself, and never follow in someone else's path. Unless, of course, you're lost in the woods, and then by all means, if you see a path, take it. Anyways, Troy is heading on to Hamilton to pursue a fellowship in hematology, and we wish him all the best.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I have the honor of roasting Scott Curran. So I'll declare the first, I did put out some feelers to get some background on Scott. And I am putting out an iBook to keep in with the trend of the department. but mine will include all the stuff that I either couldn't fit in 4 minutes or couldn't be said in public about Scott. Let's start with, there was a few themes when I spoke to a few or emailed a few of his friends and family. First of all, he's got 9 lives. We'll start at age 10, when Scott, with several of his brothers, were trying to ride a calf in a pen. Now, if you guys, so some of you guys have been on farms, some of you guys haven't, but calves are in pens. They live in there. Everything goes on in the pen. The ride was, shall we say, unsuccessful. There was an adverse outcome. The adverse outcome was called being covered in manure. Scott slithered back into the house, where his grandmother discovered him, and in traditional East Coast style said, "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Scott, you're covered in shit. Get your arse in that shower." Fast forward a little bit later, he's a bit older. His mother is entertaining the local chapter of the Catholic Women's League. Scott and his brother are roughhousing in the house. There's a lot of noise going on. So his mother, who happens to be cooking dinner for the Catholic Swimming League, the ladies of the Catholic Women's League at the time, runs into the room to settle down the noise. "You're cooking dinner. You happen to be carrying a knife." She arrives just as Scott catches the losing end of his brother, who got the better of him. Scott gets hurled across the floor and happens to collide with said knife. Anyhow, they bring him to the emergency room, and as you guys know, when I said, "What is it you want to know when you're in the emergency room? What did he tell the triage nurse?" What did Scott say? "She stabbed me." I think one of the best quotes was from his mother, who came to visit him when he heard that Scott got accepted to internal medicine in Kingston. Said, her quote was, "I always thought of coming to visit Scott, but I figured it was going to be in a penitentiary, not as a doc." Theme number 2. Smart, but nobody knew it. So growing up, as one of his sisters described it, many of his teachers thought that Scott wasn't exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer. So his mother would coach him every night in English and history and math, to which Scott would promptly fall asleep on the couch. Now, his sister, on the other hand, was a very good student, and by osmosis, she actually became an honor student. By the end, towards the end of it, geez, I got to fly here if I'm going to make this in 4 minutes. By the end of it, actually, he ends up getting into nursing, and by his sister's description, he's a nerd after that. The next thread is drinking fiascos. The short of it is there's too many to relate, but I couldn't help but tell this one where he actually he went to his brother's wedding in La Belle, Provence is all I know. I guess it's in Montreal, and the wife is an Irish Montreal Catholic. Anyhow, Scott brings a bottle of his grandfather's moonshine, and promptly is ferrying people up and down from upstairs to have a little sample of Pa's moonshine. Well, by the end of the night, of course, everybody has 3 sheets to the wind. Scott ends up spending the night in the bridal suite, to which you can believe that, suffice it to say, the traditional post-nuptial activities were postponed. Women. I have a word for you, Scott. Wingman. The Urban Dictionary, Dr. Hookey, a wingman is a guy you bring along when you're at a singles outing like a bar that helps you out with women. Scott needs them for protection. So actually, here's, because I'm over. At one point, Scott managed to start 3 simultaneous relationships. He didn't actually understand that he had started them. One was with a fashion designer, one was with an atheist, and one was with a nun, or with a nun. Okay, that's just Freudian. Nurse. Anyhow, second step, he inadvertently invites 2 of them to his apartment on the same night. Anyhow, he manages to get through that date and actually finds out that both of them, they don't actually figure out that they're there for the date. And the night goes pretty well. A couple of days later, the fashion designer shows up to tell Scott that to tell Scott that actually she's moving to Toronto, or she's got a job in Toronto, but she thinks that this may come to the end of their relationship. Scott has advice for us: follow your dreams. But he doesn't end there. Just has to go that extra step. He's a great guy. So he decides to send her a card. And he says, it's a religious card. And he says, he hopes that God is with her in her journey. Problem, he addresses the card to the atheist. He goes from 3 to 0 in 1 week. The rest of it is just protective and kind. So the part that I'll tell you to give you a bit of humanism is Scott's dad died when Scott died young, and Scott was young. He became the protector of the family. One of the enduring memories of his sister was to see Scott on more than one occasion holding some poor helpless guy up by the throat against the wall with his feet dangling, explaining to him what will happen to him if he treats his sister poorly. And I think those of you who've gone through the residency know that Scott always has your back.
Good evening. Dr. Joey Del Paggio, an old lady trapped in the body of a young boy. I offer these comments after effectively living with Joey for 2 months in India. So as his attending physician, research supervisor, spiritual mentor, and surrogate father, I'd like to share a few insights into Dr. JDP. Joey came to India with me mostly on the basis of our mutual love of Neil Young and the fact that I have 4 young children and needed some help. So Joey became part of the family. He was referred to affectionately as Uncle Joey, Jojo, which actually was an original name from his family my kids picked up on, and really became part of the Booth clan for a few months, which was a real privilege and a lot of fun. Having said that, as you can imagine, having 4 young children in India, there was epic moments, and after a busy day, Celeste and I just wanted to have some hot curry and cold Kingfisher or 7, and Joey said, well, how about we have some chocolate and warm cup of tea? And so this was the first time I saw kind of the old lady side of Joey, and he always had this little bar of chocolate, and I said, Joey, do you have anything stronger than that? There was also, I had a lot of people from Canada saying, make sure you look after Joey. So Joey showed up, I'm like, Joey, this is India, you're not in like Thunder Bay or Kingston anymore, you gotta watch your stuff. Within 4 hours, he'd lost his passport, I'm not kidding you. So this was the kind of stuff I dealt with. So in any case, there's 3 themes of JDP I'd like to talk about. The first is his curious communication skills. Joey is probably slightly above average intelligence, but as many of you know, has an undiagnosed neurologic disorder that impacts what he says, how he dresses, and how he goes surfing. So comments from the Del Paggio clan tell me that when Joey was a young boy, he actually had a speech impediment, and his parents were anxious and took him to the physicians, and the physicians said, Joey's actually slightly above average in intelligence, but he just has difficulty saying the right thing. And I think a few people here will understand that this has landed Joey in the disciplinary meetings with the residency program committee. And moreover, in India, there was this Professor Francis James. He was so intimidating, like even Stephen Archer would be intimidated by this guy. And Joey also says, hey man, to everyone. So Joey walks in to Professor Francis's clinic with his tight pants and stuff. And anyhow, goes in there and he's like, hey man, I'm Joey from Canada. And Professor Francis just says, out. and kicked him out. And so I'm mortified. I'm like, Joey, you gotta calm down. And so Dr. Francis says, I need some documentation from the hospital leadership. And so Joey emails the guy a letter from the hospital saying, Dear Professor Francis, kindly find attached a letter from none other than the hospital superintendent himself. I trust this suffices. I'm like, Joey, you asshole. I can't believe you did that. Anyhow, Francis James actually very much liked Joey. Point number 2 is that while Joey is a brilliant internist, he is not an Olympic athlete. Throughout school, he got apparently 100% in every course. Remember, he went to school in Thunder Bay. But was very clumsy in gym. And I understand that because Joey went surfing with my eldest boy. And so the instructor coached them and said, remember, if you really suck, it's okay. Keep trying, looking at the 10-year-old, thinking this grown man will figure it out. Joey was pathetic, falling over and over and over. And there was one particularly sketchy fall in a big wave, and he looked fine after. The next day, we drive into the hospital, and he's pale and sweaty and nauseous. The guy had a head injury. So, we're starting at some impaired cognitive function. I take him to India. He gets a head injury, and for 5 days, he was pale and even spacier than baseline. So that might explain a few things you've noticed. The third and final theme is that Joey occasionally exhibits questionable judgment. And so, despite very strong infectious disease training at Queen's, Joey, when he arrived in India, we took a family trip, and Joey's part of the family, got on the train, and he just touched part of the train, and he had these short shorts on and these really pale legs, and Joey was pouring alcohol sanitizer over his knees, and my kids are like, Dad, what's Uncle Joey doing? And I say, Joey, what the hell are you doing? He's infection control, and he would just smear the stuff all over his body. The other issues, I've got two more pieces of judgment. So anyhow, my children idolized Joey, and basically if they didn't finish their dessert or do math, he'd say, Adele, if you want to be the chief resident one day, you should really finish your dessert. So they all want to be chief resident when they grow up. And he helped us on long car rides or train rides where the kids are going nuts, there's vomit, there's urine in the car, it's epic. So we're playing I Spy, Let's Count the Monkeys, then we're singing Neil Young. And then the last thing we always do, which is a real hit, is we said, let's plan Joey and Jordan's wedding. Which was a lot of fun. In any case, the final part of this speech relates to Joey's wardrobe on day one on the beach. So Joey came to India, we're living on the beach, and he forgets his bathing suit. So he goes out and comes back wearing this Charlie Chaplin hat, a blue t-shirt, and he was really happy he found these fake Abercrombie shorts with moose prints on them, and he's wearing halfway up his abdomen, and they're really short and tight in all the wrong places. And he's like, I got these sandals really cheap. I'm like, Joey, those are ladies' sandals. But they're on sale. So in any case, thereafter he tried to dress more like me, and some of you may have seen a photo that speaks to that. So in closing, Joey, it's been a pleasure and a privilege to work with you over the last 3 years as a resident, a research student, a friend, and in some cases as my fifth child. Thank you.
How do you find a word that means Di Maria? Rogers and Hammerstein insightfully proffered a flibbity-gibbet, a will-o'-the-wisp, a clown. Your alleged friends have suggested wild, homeless chic. Casual messy, crazy cat lady. Erica Di Maria, born circa 1990 of Maria Di Maria. Her mother realizing from the outset it was going to be important to keep things simple for Erica. Daily life poses major challenges. Remembering an appointment at 2 p.m. on Thursday, forget it. Remembering where you put all your ID? Pretty unfortunate, Erica, isn't it, when that occurs just before a holiday to Florida and ruins it? Managing to lose your blouse, pants, heels, mascara, and interview skirt while interviewing for CARMS in different cities on different days is pretty spectacular. Good for you, we were fools enough to believe you had it all together and give it a job. Her precocious childhood sets the scene. Age 6 in Detroit, she boarded the People Mover alone, happily travelling by herself to the next station while her parents lost years of their life. After her first figure skating competition, age 7, didn't go the way she wanted, Erica was uncontrollable. And as her nonna tried to give her a bouquet of flowers, she refused, crying, I don't deserve those flowers, Nonna. I thought I was going to the Olympics someday, but now I know I suck at skating. But then, she developed the resilience that we've come to know and recognise today. Age 5, after her first ballet exam, she got a pass. Her other friends got pass perfect. When her mother asked her why, Mom, no one's going to care in 10 years what I got. Age 9, when she faltered during her piano recital, she didn't get flustered. She said, "Oh, crap," and began again. Erica went to medical school in St. Martin, basically spending the 2 years of medical schooling at the start on the beach. She then did her clerkship in New York, more accurately the Bronx. Kingston is pretty tame. Favourite drinking game? Exploding Kittens, which should only be played under adult supervision. Now, did you know we have world champions in our midst? Have you heard of the International World Championship in beer pong? I swear I'm not making this up. Erica and the apparently real mysterious long-term lover Chris are world champions in beer pong. And I'm not sure how well kept the secret is. At her parties, there was that Halloween one, Erica. You made a lovely drink that I believe was mostly bourbon and little else. It was really generous, but I think most people had a polite sip and dumped it. And politely put, I'm told Erica's alcohol to non-alcohol ratio when pouring is exceptionally generous. The cat thing, it is no joke. It's beyond usual animal-loving etiquette. Maggie the cat and Erica do everything together. Sleeping, eating, photography, filmography, and I'm afraid I have it from multiple sources. Toileting. I'm going to spare you the details which were not spared me. I am scarred for life. She's got a little black book, and in it, full of men's names who will look after her cat, rather than provide any other services. Oh, you in it, Braden? So, I've so much dirt, but so little time, and I know you're about to prod me with a red flag. But Erica, junior residents, be warned. She's a knack of roping you into a ton of work with extremely tight timelines, really ambitious. Somehow she pulls it off, and she'll give you a glass of beer in one hand while she has you toiling with the other. And then you get rewards at the end. And her grit and determination really shone through last year, especially when with hemoglobins in the 70s, she managed to play a whole season of outdoor soccer and plod through residency. We might have unleashed a monster with returning hemoglobin to normal levels. So Erica, you're a tremendous lady. You'll make a fantastic hematologist. We've got a plan for the next 2 years. We'll keep it simple. We'll make every day a party. And I'm putting the wider hematology community on high alert. Adopt the brace position for the animalistic tornado that's about to hit. We'll take the world of hematology together by storm. To Erica.
So Gurpreet, where is Gurpreet? I haven't seen her. Oh, right there. Okay. So really, Gurpreet overall is a very inspiring and admirable person. Many people comment on how straightforward she is. What you see is what you get. She says it like it is. She's also got that high energy thing. She's like the Energizer bunny, just running around, never tiring out, getting all kinds of things done. Really, she gets more done in the average afternoon than I have in the last decade of my career. So I'm not really in any position to roast her, but in any case, I think she makes us all work a little harder just so we sort of appear like we're keeping up a little bit. I remember one day overhearing a conversation with her and a junior resident, and I'm sure many of you have heard a story similar like this with Gurpreet. You know, the junior's like, well, we had a pretty tough night, and you know, this patient just came in around 5. He was, you know, undifferentiated shock. We had central lines, some pressors. Then we did like a cardioversion because it was pretty unstable AFib. Some dialysis is underway. I think we've got everything taken care of now. And then there's sort of a pause and, is that it? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, I couldn't think of anything else. Is that all you did? It's fairly honest. Pretty straightforward, the remarks you get. Sometimes the honesty has run her into a little bit of trouble. Like someone told me recently at an interview for an internal medicine training program, when asked, how do you see your career in about 5 years' time? she went into this explanation that really described an interior decorating career, and she was interrupted. Like they're like, this is a medicine training program interview, and she's got herself back on track. But Sunny does say that this whole medicine thing is really just a ploy to fund her interior decorating design program, and she also provides funds for that by not spending any money on her wardrobe. Except if it's for going to someone's wedding, then there's lots of money spent on that. She has some issues with some phobias. She is a germaphobe, and apparently there's Lysol wipes stashed all around the house, and she's probably got a few under her chair there just in case. She has some issues with decision making, even though she's embraced choosing wisely, which I really appreciate the work she's done on choosing wisely. It's run her into some trouble when at, for example, McDonald's, taking about 10 minutes to decide what to order, even though she orders the exact same thing every time. Now, I was worried about how frequently it sounds like they're going when it was the exact same thing every single time. It sounds like there's a fair bit of McDonald's going on, and I wanted to warn you that I don't think founding an entire stroke school and educating all people across Canada about stroke is going to protect you from actually having a stroke. And I hope you'll be able to recognize your own lateral medullary syndrome when it occurs. And the disinfecting wipes are not going to help you at that point in time. There's some driving issues too. Sunny said that every week or so there's a new dent or scrape on the car. She cannot explain where it's come from. Curbs and road signage do not apply to Crete either. And although she is an advocate for choosing wisely, she has unfortunately chosen a little unwisely, and she is going to leave us next year. She believes there may be better things out there, and maybe there are, but I really hope that you'll remember your humble roots here in Kingston and know that we're very proud of you and we'll miss you.
So good evening, everybody. It's my privilege to roast Chanel. Where's Chanel? Where is she? Okay, good. So Chanel's not an easy roast, let me tell you. So Chanel came to us from Vancouver, and I contacted her family, and they gave me lots of information, but they just love her too much, and she was such a beautiful, wonderful daughter that it was hard to get anything from them. There was one story about her, sounds like sort of fairly strict upbringing, and anybody who's got kids will know that you want them to finish. You're not leaving the table until you finish the food on your plate, right? Hands up, those of you who've done that. Plenty of us. How many of you really follow that through? So it sounds like Chanel has tiger mom parents, mom and dad, because you are not leaving this table till you finish the food. And that girl sat there all evening, all night, until they found her with her head in a plate in the morning, and that just shows that she may have this cool, calm demeanor on the outside, but she's tough as nails and stubborn on the inside. But those of us who've worked with Chanel, and I'm one of them, have always been really impressed with her work ethic, her non-confrontational style. She's a smart young woman and a great doctor and a pleasure to sort of have on teams. And I was really struggling to come up with any kind of information on her, and thank God for Nicole, who managed to fill me in with a few details. So actually Chanel, I didn't realize, is really a little bit ditzy. And so she has a nickname. This is an evening we're talking about various nicknames. So Chanel has a nickname, Metro, with Nicole's family. And she acquired this nickname on a trip to Paris about 5 years ago, where it's sort of her previously unknown, remarkable knowledge of the Parisian subway system. She thought she knew her way around because she knew exactly where she was, because the station outside her hotel was the Metropolitan. And there's this nice big Metro sign, and it was kind of cool that every station had the same name around Paris. And how do people really know where to go before it's pointed out to her that Metropolitan is the name for the underground in Paris? They have their own names. She also has natural talents with automobiles. So Nicole's family came over, apparently has a brother-in-law who's English, and they came to visit them in Vancouver, and it just so happened that they have the same car that Chanel drives, and so this English fellow was comparing the English model to the Canadian model, and I'm sure the English model was better, because they usually are, but one of the sort of real things that he had, they said that it's really interesting how the headlights in England are just way better than the Canadian headlights. It's really rather dim when you drive around in this country. Before they realized that Chanel had only had this car for a year and had never actually switched on the headlights and had driven it around on daytime lights for the whole time. Anyway, she knows better now. She's also not known to tolerate alcohol particularly well and has a very low tolerance. I'm not sure how it's going this evening, but Nicole informs me that if she has a few drinks, she likes to run up and down escalators the wrong way and has to be sort of restrained by her. But Chanel, that's a 5-year-old trick. They play the up and down the escalators game, not you. She can be excessively demanding and stubborn when drunk, including midnight trips to McDonald's, which seems to have a theme. They're on the same table. I'm sorry we didn't have McDonald's for you two this evening. And then will refuse to eat it because she's passed out on the couch. She's also got some quirky kind of ideas for things that you met. She once wanted to make a fish tank out of an old TV set, which I actually thought sounded kind of cool. But they had this old TV set in the house for about 6 months before Nicole said, you've got to get rid of that thing, we're never going to have a fish tank in there. She loves animals and dogs, and I've seen more photos of her dog than anything else on your cell phone. But Chanel, thank you for your hard work, dedication, patience, kindness, and compassion. And we're delighted she's staying here in respirology at Queen's. So please come up and congratulations to her.
So I started off with an iBook, and the other end of it is I'm going to now give a tribute to Anas. So as opposed to Scott, where I'm going to publish the iBook, Anas was a different problem. I had no information, so I had a contact at CSIS, so I phoned them. So first, he phones me back and says, we have no record. Then he phones me back again and says, actually, that's kind of suspicious. Like, we have no record. So when you're Syrian and they have no record, it's like, okay, what's the guy hiding? So there's some stuff goes on, some background checking. And they did actually find an event that got logged. It actually happened in Mississauga. I guess Anas, he was turning on a yellow light. So you can tell it's not Kingston because like a yellow light in Kingston is like, go fast because it's going to turn red. So anyhow, so he's turned on a red light and a cop pulls him over and he loses it. Now, according to his wife, we asked, like, what language was he speaking? And his wife is not quite sure if it was English or Arabic. The cop wasn't sure. This was kind of going south. I'm Syrian, by the way, right? Anyhow, fortunately, his wife bailed him out of it. He gets out of jail, and so to this day, the only thing that's recorded in CSIS' record of Anas Maksum is the fact that if he turns on a yellow light and gets pulled over, he speaks a hybrid of English and Arabic. We're glad because that would have been a hell of a job filling the call slot on that short notice. And the final conclusion of CSIS is the guy's just boring. The next theme, he can be a little socially awkward. And there's a worker at the CN Tower in Toronto who happens to have the name of Anas. So Anas, our Anas, is on a tour. And he sees this guy and he sees his tag. And he's chasing him around the CN Tower. And he says, my name is Anas too. My name is Anas too. I guess the security was called, but again, it got settled. When he first moved to Canada, he got matched in the IMG program. And I guess Health Force Ontario has a celebration. You get invited to an event. Anas arrives fashionably late. So he's searching around and he sees the table and there's empty seats, so he goes and sits and he's just watching his time, and people are kind of giving him a bit of a wry grin. And then he notices that his table mate gets up and walks up to a microphone to give a speech and introduces herself as Deb Matthews, who happens to be the ex-Minister of Health, and she was actually here to give the speech, and Ass was politely lifted away from the head table, and he was found a more appropriate spot in the room. He can be a little accident-prone. Actually, when I heard this story, I thought, so why didn't you go into surgery? So if an ass comes to your house and you happen to have plate glass windows like patio doors, whatever, put little stickers on them, because an ass has a problem. It's like the birds, right? You just fly it into it, right? So he has literally broken the patio doors a couple of times. And apparently he has a knack. I was looking for it there tonight. He's done a very good job. He has developed a unique skill of suturing himself in the mirror. So he has a little mark there on his head from running into a patio door. He can be a little stingy, and he has some interesting business ideas. His friend Omar says, I don't know what to think about an ass. Every day he's got a new business idea. But his first business idea was when he was a kid, and his parents, as most of us have done, gave him an allowance, and an ass would save that allowance up, and he would buy toys. And then he would turn around and he would rent said toys out to his classmates and make a little more money, buy a few more toys. So actually, I guess you do have something to fall back on if things don't work out. But one of the things that you have to appreciate, Anas has been on a journey, and so we're having a bit of fun here with him tonight. And I met him 3 years ago as he arrived, and I do have to admit, the first day we met, it was like, okay, what's going on here? As one of his colleagues said, he arrived like a ton of bricks. And so you could see this kernel of a guy that said, I think there's something there, but we're having trouble kind of connecting. So he came directly to Canada 4 years ago after having spent some time in the U.S. He was like a fish out of water, a camel out of the desert, whatever. But he is a solid guy. He is a hard worker. He's conscientious. One of the compliments that I heard actually given to him tonight by another attending who mentioned it to me is from ICU nurses, he got the comment of, he was extremely respectful to the nursing staff. He's a family guy. He's generous with family and friends. Again, one of his friends said at one point he actually offered to drive 5 hours from Oakland to Ottawa just to deliver a document for him. He's generous with strangers. He works tirelessly with local churches in helping to resettle Syrian refugees. I'm really glad that I met Anas, and he certainly showed me what courage and perseverance has done, and he has a very strong career. I'm glad he's staying with us in Kingston. Anas.
Good evening. It is my privilege to share a few thoughts with you about an energetic, enthusiastic, some people might say hyper, but compassionate young man who we all embrace as a loyal friend and colleague, Dr. Mino Mitri. I spoke with several members of Mino's family, and as well many of his friends, and they all had very similar things to say about Mino. But one of the things that stood out the most were his obsessive-compulsive traits, his over-preparedness, and his exceptional organizational skills, which actually know no boundaries. This extends from color-coding his hangers and clothes in his closet, to organizing and reorganizing dishes and cutlery precisely in the dishwasher, lining his socks up very neatly in the drawer, so heaven forbid if his sister tried to pull a joke because he knew it was being tampered with. And then there's the bathroom. Everything is lined up in its place in the bathroom. Even the towels have to be folded just so with a nice pleat, as if you were coming into a luxurious hotel. Never mind the dust, as long as the towel is fine, all is well. Being the worldly and curious fellow that Mino is, he loves to travel and explore. On a family trip to Cuba, Mino wandered down the beach alone, and he came upon a nudist beach. When returning to his family, his father asked him, "So Mino, what did you do?" Mino said, "I decided to try it out." This was a very liberating moment for Mino, who we all know as a very fashion-conscious individual. But I have to tell you a secret. Mino's favorite outfit is his birthday suit. It doesn't have any wrinkles, you know. At least not yet. When planning for a trip to Egypt, he became worried about the Middle Eastern attitudes towards gay men, and he was very conscious of not drawing attention to himself. So one day in clinic, he asked Liz Hill and I if his gait would give him away. His sister commented that Mino has always walked on his tiptoes. But Mino really wanted to have the John Wayne swagger, so he practiced and practiced when going from exam room to exam room between seeing patients. And then he asked Liz and I, "Well, did I do it?" And we said, "You know what, Mino, I don't think you've mastered that. The closest you could get would be Donald Trump." Mino is definitely an intellectual being, and during his first year of internal medicine, when on call in Emerge for CTUE, he was so excited to share with Dr. Smith that he clinched the diagnosis of Lyme disease. He was seeing a woman who had been hiking in the woods, and she was feeling very unwell. So Mino came to Dr. Smith and says, "I know the diagnosis. I found the most perfect bullseye target lesions on this lady's chest, arms, and legs." And of course, poor Mino, his bubble burst when Dr. Smith told him that, "Mino, these lesions are actually from the EKG lead." When Mino was 5 to 6 years old, his sister told me he was always surrounded by many girls at school. However, as he grew up, dating was not his strength, and he wasn't very successful at that. So Mino spent a year or so with lots of reflection and introspection and came to the conclusion that he was quite a unique young man. And then he discovered social media dating, and he was a hopeless romantic. He had a different flavor for each week. This taught him about love and heartbreak and actually allowed him to discover what he truly wanted in a partner. Now he is with David, and they are a perfect match. Now we all know Mino to be a great chef. Mino puts on lavish dinners, and he's a great host and provides awesome entertainment. But he didn't always start out like that. I think when Mino was growing up, he had a great fear of vampires. So the couple of recipes he tried, it called for 3 cloves of garlic. So Mino went out and bought all this garlic, and instead of putting in 3 cloves, he put 3 whole buds of garlic in. Note on recipe, too much garlic. Mino's endless passion for palliative care extends far beyond his professional life. In fact, he and David just adopted this week a 13-year-old black lab called Emma. Considering the dog is blind, deaf, has disequilibrium, has trouble walking, Mino's questions to the vet were as follows. What is Emma's prognosis? Less than a year, said the vet. And what are her care needs? Very many, said the vet. But this is a perfect pet for Mino because of his very caring nature for all and everyone. It is my pleasure to celebrate Mino and to say cheers to Mino, and we welcome you as a friend and colleague into the subspecialty of palliative medicine.
So I would say it's my pleasure to roast Stephen Montague, but he's squeaky clean, and it's been an absolute pisser trying to drag up information on this guy that I can roast him with. You know, you like that information, like the wild weekend in Vegas, you know, was hungover, woke up wearing a dress, or, you know, some story that questioned his manliness. Of course, I have Willie's roast later for that. And I tried my darndest, and everything came out squeaky clean. A little too squeaky clean. Began to wonder if maybe people were being silenced. Didn't take long for me to discover that he has a hobby. He enjoys Korean sword fighting. In fact, he's a black belt in Korean sword fighting. So some friends of his were helping him move recently, and upon seeing the stash of weapons in Stephen's house, Andre actually, I think, dropped a load in his shorts. Like, this isn't just sort of, you know, this is my hobby. This is like America's Most Wanted kind of stuff. Like, look at his face. Can you not picture it on America's Most Wanted? So, there's some more stories, of course, with Korean sword. Like, how can there not be more stories with Korean sword fighting? So, you know, typical casual conversation you'd have with your girlfriend. Is it okay if me and some of my students come over and we turn your living room into a sword fighting dojo? Oh, sure. Just try not to break anything. Let's see where this is going. So, well, what are you going to be doing? Well, nothing complicated. We're just going to be learning how to blow out candles with a sword. I was doing that last Wednesday. So we're working away, and all of a sudden, crash, smash! Heather walks into the room, and there's Stephen standing with the sword still above his head, impaled into the light fixture, shattered all over the place. One of the students in the corner, "Oh, Sensei, I think you're in trouble." So to offset this, you know, it's funny, I didn't think of this, but he's also a fan of the theater, and not so much going, but in fact he used to have a flair for performing in theater, and of course his leading role was Peter Pan. Nice, tight, green tights. That did not create a good mental picture for me. But apparently it was such a wonderful experience for him participating. It was indwelled on him. And in fact, I am told that he can still perform most of the numbers from Peter Pan today. We'll be expecting that in the weeks to come. So where does this leave us? It leaves me scared for what to do with him over the next 2 years in our GIM program. I'm certainly terrified to fail him on any rotation lest I end up impaled. But it certainly leaves me incredibly happy knowing that he'll be here in our own fellowship program in GIM for the next couple years. So I'd like to thank Stephen and come on up.
Hi, so I get to do Bethany Monteith, which is right here in front of me. So I think everybody knows Bethany. And Bethany had an unusual route into our program, so I think most of you know, but she actually did ophthalmology for a couple of years before deciding to make the switch into internal medicine. And Bethany actually came, a lot of you may not know, Bethany came for several interviews here. Like 2 or 3 visits, checking out the internal medicine program, and I thought I was interviewing her and showing her around. It turns out really she was interviewing me and us. But I'm delighted that she decided to come here, and it was very difficult for residents coming in the middle of training programs, but Bethany just settled in immediately and found a home here and happiness here, and I think that's really a testament to her skills and how she works well with people. So I didn't know much about Bethany's family until I was preparing for this roast. but it sounds like her family is like Little House on the Prairie, except on the East Coast. So she has two other sisters, Hannah and Hillary. So it's like Hannah and her sisters, of which Bethany is one. But Bethany's the oldest, and they grew up on a farm, and it sounds like Dad never had any boys, but taught the girls, especially the oldest one, Bethany, how to survive in the country without much, no running, whatever. According to her daughters, her sisters, they said, Bethany is very good with her hands. And I thought, well, I'd leave Jeff to let us know about what that's all about. I didn't really want to ask any more questions. But she grew up on a philosophy, apparently, of hard work and dedication. And I said, well, what kind of things did she do kind of around the place? And I said, well, she would wash cars, mow lawns, she'd service the car, change the oil, change the car. I'm going to stop reading because Dr. Petrov's going to trade me in for these skills and have somebody who knows what they're doing with mechanical things around the house. But the most impressive thing is Bethany is really good with a gun. So this girl knows how to shoot a .22. Apparently, just for fun, she shoots groundhogs around the farm. She's really an East Coast kind of Annie Oakley character. And it sounds like there's a lot of weapons in her house at home, because at some point in her youth, her mother became stabbed or impaled on some... See, you weren't there, Stephen, I don't think. But became impaled with a knife and had to be driven to the hospital. So Bethany, like any dutiful daughter, bundles her mother into the car and drives her to the hospital, which sounds like a fabulous and wonderful, supportive thing to do, but she was 14. So apparently, is Chris Simpson still here in New Brunswick? Like Chris Simpson's always telling us about safety of driving and ECG. Forget that, right? As long as you're a dead-eye shot and 14 years old, you can drive a car in New Brunswick. It's fine. So she was tough. They make them tough there. They used to play soccer on ice fields, and she has 2 broken noses because she played goalie to do that. And her mother once thought that she would lock her outside of -10 as punishment because she'd been misbehaving. And Bethany just said, well, I'll show her who's the more stubborn, and just sat out there until the mother dragged her in and got far more worried than Bethany ever was. So she's a tough cookie. Her younger sisters apparently were much softer and more prone to tears. And so Bethany would cure this affliction by being rough with them. I don't know what that means, but we'll probably ask Jeff about that too. So she experimented with cooking and traumatized those poor girls by giving them horrendous food, but apparently it's gotten much better over time. She now cooks gorgeous meals and entertains in style, and has a sort of massive collection of clothes, according to Erica, with pants of every color, including gold snakeskin, which Jeff probably knows about that one too. Personal grooming is very important to her. She does her hair on a regular basis, washes with dry shampoo, whatever that is. Has her nails done twice a week, which I didn't even think was possible. But just think of her humble beginnings. This is a girl that showed up on a tractor for her prom, apparently, when she was in high school. So Bethany has these 2 wonderful sides to her character, and she's also a fabulous doctor. I've worked with her on the wards, and I know how great she is to work with. She's intelligent, dedicated, really efficient and organized, and we're delighted that she's staying here. So she and Erica together. Hematology, get ready. You can have your hands full.
Where is Charles sitting? I can't even see him. Ah, there you are. So I have the pleasure of roasting Charles. I was surprised when he came up to me and asked me, because I have done no CTU, no consult, nothing, not even projects. He came to me, Barry, can you roast me? at first I was very reluctant. I asked him why. Apparently, I gave him some advice when we were together in Oshawa. It was PGY4, PGY1 there. We ended up in this like super cold apartment in December there, and apparently I gave him some sort of advice. If you ever remember, you do tell me if you said it worked well for you. So I asked him again today, so what exactly did I tell you? He said, when you were studying there, you went to Zaycake, and you brought back these really nice ice cream cake for me every day. Well, I don't know what to say. Anyways, so that was the initial reason. So we had Charles for a couple of years now, 3 years now, and one thing I noticed that he really likes clinical medicine. Very often, I think all 3 years, every time I've encountered, he's come up to me and say, Barry, I have this very interesting case of this patient with this S3 and S4, and with bilateral crackles. I think he has cardiomyopathy. So we have trained him very well in physical exams and the diagnosis. So this is from a source, a case report from one of your colleagues, also in Oshawa. So apparently one day you were asked to see a patient down in an emergency department, and you have everything figured out. You were presenting to an attending there, and you said, this patient here, she was dyspneic with coarse lower lobe crackles localized to the right lower lobe with egophony and vocal phragmitis. And this is consistent with the diagnosis of community-acquired pneumonia. We should, according to Canadian guidelines, should start him on ceftriaxone and azithromycin. So it sounds very, very promising. So we're producing a very nice clinician here. So they proceeded on to look at his x-ray, and it was completely crisp. And he said, no, that is not the x-ray. So he looked for the x-ray and found the x-ray with the right lower lobe pneumonia, and it was from a year ago. So the attending didn't say anything. So he looked over to his colleague, to Steve, and he said, what did he say? What did she say, the attending? What did she say? Steve just said, not good. It's not good. So we have fulfilled our mandate in Trinity Master of Clinical Expertise. Charles is also very good at citing studies over these years. Always when he presents a case, his rationale will say, this is the real studies in heart failure, we should do spironolactone, and etc. So this is a great, he's also very good with the algorithms, hyperacute cases as well. So one day he was called with Scott and Charles to go see a COVID-19 person with threatening airways, like about to die. Scott being all done close, said, we got to intubate now. This gal will die right now. So he was going to go ahead. Charles ran away, came back with this trinket in his hand, gave it to Scott and said, according to Zifico airway algorithm, the first step we should do is to use the gyroscope. And Scott asked him, do you know how to use this thing? He said, no. So I made fun of Charles a lot tonight when this French accent tonight. So he has gone a long way. I didn't realize that he did not know how to speak English before he came. But this is from your English colleague, and you may try to find out who, according to the story. So this is 3 years ago when you were just outside the KGH cafeteria. Brand new resident, don't know much English, and Charles had walking down the hallway, he saw several young ladies who was there doing a bake sale. We see that sometimes in the cafeteria. Charles had no money on him at that time, but full of the French, such charming French accent and his charms, prepped himself, went up to the ladies and said, are you giving any? I think it really scared the girls. So we have taught him the valuable lesson on the CAN-MAS work of communication. Anyways, well, Charles said, we know you're going to Quebec, going back to your homeland, but hope you do well. And my only final words is keep on giving it to the people over there.
Willie Raskin. Finally, an easy one. So, this is one where you sort of have to pick a theme and sort of get the rest of the material out of the way and just stick with the theme. And the question that came to my mind is, how do you end up a Willie? Your name's William. You have many options. You have William, you have Will, you have Bill. How do you end up a Willie? I think it has to go back to some manhood issues that probably start fairly early in life. Preschool. So you can imagine the proud parents, they have the preschool plays, all the kids are out there proud, singing their hearts out, courageous, loving what they're doing, and just belting it out for their parents. Those were Willie's classmates. Willie, on the other hand, was a little bit scared to be up there. And in fact, they had to turn him backwards, facing the wall in the preschool play, so he could keep his anxiety in check and sing the songs. Think of proud Bob. Look, there's the back of our son's head. So what did he want to be? You know, as you grow up, you always think, what do you want to be? And, you know, young boys, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a hockey player. You don't typically hear, I want to be an entomologist. Apparently, a number of his family friends actually had to go to the dictionary to figure out what manly career Willie was looking to pursue. He certainly has succeeded in bugging a lot of people. What about kindergarten, right? Finally, he wants to be like a superhero, right? Oh, it's emerging. He's a boy. It's emerging. He wants to be a superhero. He got glasses. And then he's going to kindergarten. He's afraid to go to kindergarten with his glasses. And kids, you know, they look funny with the glasses. No, I'm afraid they won't recognize me in my glasses. I'm sorry, Willie. You're not Clark Kent, and you're definitely not Superman. I'm going to skip forward a few years. A few years back, he was traveling through Europe with a friend of his. And they were in Berlin, and they met two, I think what were described as eager females. And they decided to go to a park to hang out. And so, you know, it's looking like fairly good prospects for Willie this evening. What does he do? He invites creepy bartender Bjorn along for the ride to the park. Needless to say, it was 2 hours of awkwardness and early to bed. Jeff would like me to say thank you for that. Following that, coming back began adventures on Tinder. I won't go into a lot, but there was a lot of sweeping to the right. So this year, Carms is coming up. And I was like, you know what? No Willie ever won a competitive job interview. I brought him into my room, into the office, and I said, guess what, Willie? Your name's now Will. We had a good talk about it. I said, you can't walk into those interviews and say, hi, I'm Willie. You want me in your program. And since then, I've known Willie as Will Raskin, confident future oncologist. With that, I'd like to invite Will Raskin up to the front.
So I've got the privilege of roasting Seth Schaefer. And as you might imagine, if anybody knows Seth, this is a bit of a difficult task. It's hard to find something to say about Seth because really Seth doesn't say a lot. How many times you walk by Seth in the hallway and said, hey Seth, how's it going? And he's like, how was call last night, Seth? You have a good weekend? And, you know, speaking as a relatively relaxed, chilled out kind of guy, there's nothing wrong with this. I don't see this as a sort of human failing or anything. And Seth takes this a bit to the extreme, though. I'd even describe him as sort of diastolic, actually. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, for every systole, you need a diastole. Every guy like Scott Curran, you know, sometimes you need a break and you just hang out with Seth and you sit there in silence. But that's not going to get me very far in an address like this, so I had to, you know, seek some help from his friends. Seth should probably be worried. I've taken the liberty of not telling him about much of the stuff that was potentially offered to me, but the initial responses were like, here's some stuff, I could tell you something else, but since it's kind of a politically correct event, I'm not really sure if you want to go in that direction, but if you do, let me know. Or, in the interest of discretion, I really don't think I should say much more, but in the interest of keeping Seth intact tonight, I think I'll take some mercy on him today. So the types of things that came up obviously were nice things, boring things like he's a great guy, a wonderful friend. Mala tells me he smiles all the time, even when someone's shitting on him over the phone. He's got a big grin on his face. This is great. But a couple things I learned about Seth that I kind of knew but didn't realize. I learned that Seth doesn't walk. He struts. I was also told, quote, you may not know, but Seth is somewhat of a ladies' man. And I don't know if it's his strut, his quiet confidence, or what that makes him irresistibly attractive to women. I do know, however, it's not his lavish spending habits. Seth is pretty careful with his money, and by careful I mean really tight. Seth has got a reputation for, on a night out of drinking, showing up just before last call. The only reason being is that the drinks are cheaper at home. So, why would he do this? There's no real reason. I mean, you guys actually make some money, probably enough to buy some beers on a Friday or Saturday night. But then I learned that Seth actually has a little bit of a penchant, if you will, for gambling. Seth likes to gamble. And it doesn't matter if it's the craps table, if it's sports betting, if it's the follow-up hemoglobin and the GI bleed, if it is the urine sodium in the patients with acute kidney injury. The length of stay is a good one. It's either 6 or 8 days, just like it's at the craps table. Fortunately, Seth, it's a cash bar tonight. Thank you, Dr. Archer. I think you'll find that some of us will probably buy a drink for you. But the real meat of this talk is going to be about Seth's future plans. As you know, Seth is going back to Winnipeg. Listen to that, going back to Winnipeg. I don't think anyone's spoken those 4 words in that order ever. Now don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great people came out of Winnipeg. Some Canadian icons, even people like Burton Cummings, Neil Young. Myself, I'm descended from 2 Winnipeggers. And actually, Burton Cummings and Neil Young and my parents have another thing in common. Not only were they all born in Winnipeg, when they got the hell out, they had the common sense not to return. Winnipeg, the name is derived from the Cree word for muddy water. Kingston, derived from the English word for town of kings. For those of you unfamiliar with Winnipeg, I looked up hashtag Winnipeg tourism slogans on Twitter. Winnipeg, as flat as warm beer, only colder. Winnipeg, until you've been here, you will never know how amazing it feels to leave. I like this one. Winnipeg, there's a meth to our madness. And with all due respect to Dr. Hookey, Winnipeg, even Newfoundlanders don't want to move here. And of course, there's the famous Winnipeg handshake. You're all familiar with the Shawinigan handshake. Our former Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien, that protester came up to him. The Winnipeg handshake is when you have an empty beer bottle and you smash it on the ground and you make a stabbing motion towards your assailant. But in any case, I am actually sad to see Seth go. He's a great guy. I would have loved to have him stay here and continue to work with him. I strongly supported his application to Queen's, and despite my deep sense of betrayal, rejection, disappointment, and misunderstanding for his choice to go back to Winnipeg, I do in fact wish him well. I'd like to offer him a drink. He totally screwed up this joke because he bought this damn drink for me when I went up to get it to give to him now, but just pretend I bought it for you. The empties at the bar, you can pick up on the way out and take it with you when you go back to Winnipeg in case you need to give someone a Winnipeg handshake walking away home from the hospital. It's a sec.
Ugh. I am more scared of roasting Jody than anything that I've ever done. I need a lot of liquid courage. And those who have been on service to me knew how fret I was. I wasn't doing any too much teaching or even clinical service. I was mostly trying to figure, oh my god, what am I going to say about Jody? And doing arts and crafts and props that I'm going to try to make fun of Jody of. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. Archer, this is what I spend most of my time on. So Jody is quite anonymous. I went all around asking everyone, is there anything about her? No one said anything. I'm very glad that Erica and Bethany offered something. Said that she owned 2 cats. And according to Erica, she's a crazier cat lady than her. But I asked Andrew, her husband, any cat story. He wouldn't say anything. No one would divulge anything. So I think there's probably something more, but no one would say it. So Jody, one of the big things about her is I don't like to use my phone a lot, but I have never changed a spelling of a person's name that many times in my entire life. I actually still not exactly sure how to spell her name. Is it Jody? J-O-D-I or J-O-D-I-S? I've seen all 3. So I asked her, you're going to become a GFM fellow next year, you're going to get your own card. What are you going to write? She said, oh yeah. I've been trying to do her impression the entire morning. So after Dr. Moore's roast, initially Dr. Marca was thinking about doing her roast, so she was training me to impersonate her in every single way. Actually, after Dr. Moore's roast, went to her office, and then we locked the office. She's actually trained me to how to do all her little demeanors and her voice, but I can't do that high squeaky voice anymore because I reached puberty. I can't do it anymore. So it's hard to also, the other thing is trying to figure out Jody. She's really smart. I had her a couple of times. I pretty much let her handle everything on her own. But according to Andrew, she's not really street smart. She's only book smart, apparently. So, apparently one time, they travel a lot. They went to Mexico once, and after they landed at the airport, go out. They apparently pre-booked a ride. I did not know you can do that, and to take them to their destination. So some guy came up, insisted in helping her, and then he said, oh, okay. Kind of a little bit of ditzy type of voice, I think. That's how I played it in my mind. And then took her luggage and just took everything and brought her to the taxi. Andrew saved her, took everything and brought her away from it. The other thing is that when they went to China once, to my homeland, and over there's no right of way of passengers. So I can imagine Jody just walking around the street. And then just about to walk into the intersection, and she was about to almost got killed by a car, and she just pulled her back in. Anyway, so also Jody has a doctor overreaction. They were in Bali once, and they went to in Indonesia, this place called Monkey Forest. Apparently it's like an open space with hundreds of monkeys running around. And as they were walking around, one jumped on Jody's shoulder. I don't know why. Jumped on her, and she freaked, but she didn't want to scream. And then they were walking around, and then just tried to walk away, try to make, I said nothing happened. The monkey probably got bored, jumped up her and just scratched Jody on her leg. And then she got really worried. She went back, according to Andrew, just keep taking photos serially every day, how we trained her every day, and compare it to everything on up to date. And couldn't find anything. So, after Andrew said this, I tried to look something up for you. So there was 2 articles ever written. It's called The Infectious Disease Consequences of Monkey Business. in Canadian Journal of the Disease of Medical Microbiology in 2008, and one is called Not Enough Monkey Business in Science 1990. Anyway, so those are not very distinguished features of Jodie. The only thing I always remember her by is her eyes, how big they are. I try to stretch mine out, I just can't do it, so I have to do this. So this is all I have been working on the entire day. When you know Jodie is like excited or you stump her, this is what happens to her. And when you know she's bored, it's like, Anyways, she's saying about, we'd love to have you here, Jodie. And in a way, she reminds me of myself when I was young, in a resident, kind of hyper, very quick to do things, sometimes seems to be a bit manic. We'll end up in probably section B1 together one day. But anyway, love to have you here, Jodie.
Andre, Dr. Andre, I'm just going to call you Andre. I made it this far without having to pronounce your name out loud. I'm not going to start now. I'm sure as hell I'm not going to give that a try. But it's a great pleasure and honor to talk about you on this occasion. I first met Andre a couple of years ago when he was on his IC rotation. He wasn't on my team, but it didn't stop him from wanting to put chest tubes in all my patients, apparently with no further indication than presence of a chest. But it was very clear from that point that he was very interested in respirology. And this was great. It served us well when we were on team together. No one got discharged from our team without outpatient PFTs and new prescriptions for inhalers and all kinds of stuff, which was actually probably good treatment for most of them. The 20-year-olds with pyelonephritis were a little confused about why they were having to blow into a tube really hard, but nonetheless, this was clearly his passion, and you'd run into Andre, you know, he wouldn't even be doing anything that had to do with respirology. He's seeing my patient with pulmonary fibrosis. Andre, aren't you on endocrine right now? I was like, well, yeah, maybe. And isn't it a Sunday? Like, what are you even doing here? His interest in it was clear, and he hasn't diverged from that path ever since. But the interest in lungs is one thing. The true gift of Andre and the skill that he's really known for is the obsessive bean counting when it comes to patience and fairness and holding the phone in the emerge and making sure that everything is spread out evenly and fairly as much as possible. Dr. Maslov, I know this patient's supposed to come to us, but I noticed back in January of 2013, Team C took a patient. It's really supposed to go to A. So it's just, I mean, this 95-year-old confused woman with aggressive behavior and no family, it's just got to go to Dr. Smith's team because I'm just writing the wrong. Yeah, I'm sure that's fine. That's fine. Or Dr. Maslov, this patient's referred to us as a readmission. You know, they were discharged at the beginning of the block, but I went ahead and took the liberty of asking decision support to download the full ADT feed from that month. And yes, the patient was discharged on the first day of our block, but the discharge order was written at 11:59. So technically, yes, the patients were well cared for, but the list was really well cared for. So it made some of the things that I discovered after talking to Andre's wife, Katrin, a little more interesting. There were a number of interesting things we discovered. Katrin, first of all, who is, you should know, despite being an off-service resident, put you to shame. You were a great resident. Your wife was one of the very best. So there were a number of things that were surprising. One, that you convinced Katrin to marry you. But two, that you had all these some of the things that in your personal life just didn't really gel with these things in your professional life. One thing that was interesting was that you wanted to be a dentist, and that can be forgiven. I think we've set you on the right course. There's no shame in it. It's fine. But apparently you're a great procrastinator, and you wouldn't do things like submit your call stipends on time. You also apparently wouldn't do things like submit your taxes on time, which was really the ultimate irony, that in your professional life, this guy who was obsessed with fairness, with accounting, with making sure that everything was all in order, was guilty of serial tax evasion at the same time. Just didn't quite square, but we certainly benefited from it, and we certainly enjoyed having you on our team, and we're certainly very pleased, and I'm particularly proud to send you off to respirology training in Toronto. You're going to represent us and our program beautifully there, and it's been a great pleasure to work with you here and to have you on all of our services. I just would caution you that if the day comes, as I'm sure it will, where you give us a call, you've got some patient who's had a transplant that you want to repatriate, just remember, we're capped, or our team's full, or we don't have a bed, or if we do, we've got someone to swap out for you. Just remember, I'm keeping track. We'll see you,
Braden, this is going to be pretty tame. How do we describe Braden Waters? Over the last few years, Braden has rear-ended at least 3 cars. And this sums up his style in Kingston. He's aggressive, he moves quickly, and if you're not careful, he'll assault you from behind. But the question that many people ask, and this is not a joke, they really do ask this, is Braden secretly a serial killer? No, of course he isn't. But, you say, what about all those people who've gone missing at KGH over the last few years? And also in Oshawa while Braden was there unelected? It could have been anybody. But, you say, the suspect was seen. The suspect was wearing Lululemon clothing and had long, beautifully maintained golden hair. Yeah, so it's a woman. Aha, you say. But, like Braden, the suspect's hair was done up in a dainty little bun. Yeah, so the suspect is an old woman. But, you say, the suspect was jacked. I mean, they clearly lived in a gym and they fed on anabolic steroids. Okay, calm down. What is top of your differential for a spandex-wearing, steroid abuser with long blonde hair? It's obviously a female Olympic athlete from the Soviet Union. But wait, you say. This was no ordinary Lululemon clothing. This was men's Lululemon clothing, and only one man in the world actually wears Lululemon clothing. So, Braden, on behalf of all those potential victims at KGH who can't speak for themselves, the vulnerable, the intubated, we're glad you're going to Hamilton. Though we are slightly concerned you're doing critical care. Anyway, so mass murder. But what else has Braden done? He dropped out of high school, became a carpenter, went back to high school, did a PhD in neuroscience, went to med school, and then despite already being a fully qualified carpenter, chose not to do orthopedics. His interests range from Hemingway to astrophysics. As Allenby said, you're an interesting man, there's no doubt about it. One final thing. Since the onset of his man bun, Braden has been getting more pages than anybody else, and it's because most of these pages are sent by a fellow resident, Gur Chandok. Gur has been paging Braden to local hair salons. So, Braden, especially as you're getting married soon to your lovely fiancée, we hope you take Gur's advice. After all, he knows more about man buns than you do.
Thank you, Sebastian. You know the way to my heart. I'm really worried now that only residents are going to be asked to roast other residents because that was really good. So I'm so happy to be here. As you saw, I got that nice children's book from Dr. Taylor. And you think that we all come to be your attendings and we teach you and all that. But the truth is that we learn a lot from you. And we are better doctors, we are better teachers, and better people from knowing you. Anyways, back to what we're supposed to be doing, the roast for Dr. Matt Wu. So, I'm honored to make a speech, a roast, a toast, whatever it's supposed to be,
it's a talk, really, and the objectives of my talk are to A, make you laugh, B, make you cry, and C, just insert Star Wars into this because Matt really likes Star Wars. And tomorrow you're going to get this email from the Department of Medicine asking you to evaluate this. And when you fill that out, just remember to keep your comments professional and consider the feelings of the speaker when filling out the evaluation. So I have known Matt, or actually knew about Matt, since he was a clerk. He was with Gerald on ID, and he stood out a little bit because he had this hairstyle that was the triangle hairstyle, and it was, you could see like from far away that, you know, there was this, anyways, you just wondered. So I knew of him, but I really very closely followed his progress in internal medicine. And he has a lot of positive qualities. He is extremely stylish. Many people have said this. Many stylish people have said this. Matt, where are you? Okay, can you stand up and just show everyone how stylish you are? And a female attending, I won't say who, said that you were very handsome. And also said that you were very zen. But you know what you are to me? To me, you are a gem. And I'm going to talk about that later. And one of my pet peeves is when somebody's presenting grand rounds and they say, oh, I'm going to get to that later. Because then you're thinking, like, my God, how long is this person going to talk for that they're going to get to that later? But we will get to that later. Claudia, it's okay, right? Okay. Okay, so Matt has a couple of issues that I think need to be discussed. One came to my attention. I asked him, you know, I love music, and I said, Matt, can you please send me your list of your favorite songs? So he sent me this list of his favorite songs, and I listened to them. And his songs that he sent me were beautiful, deep, like moving, like spiritual, like Sebastian. Lovely. Isn't that lovely? And then I thought about the songs that I listen to, and I was like really embarrassed because my music is like loud. Yeah, provocative, suggestive, whatever. Anyways, I was really embarrassed, and I felt like just immediately humbled. But then Liz, his girlfriend, told me that those actually weren't his favorite songs. He sent them to me because he thought they were cool. So what he is actually a liar. And so I'm thinking, okay, in your heart, Mala, can you forgive someone who is a liar? And I thought, yeah, I can actually, because he only lies if there's something to gain. So you have to understand that makes it kind of okay. So he lied to impress me. Thank you. I really like that song too. And he lies to get his favorite food. So I said, Liz, you know, what is Matt's favorite food? You know, I'll get it for him. It's free food. Whatever food is free. The food you had today was free, right? Wasn't it? Yeah. So he has lied. He has pretended to be an engineering student. He has pretended to be a med student this year, going to medical school orientation. Barbecue, to get free food. He has done this. And when I heard this, I felt so bad. You know, Matt, you don't have to do that. Whenever I have a CTU dinner, you can come. Like, if you want to come on date night, like, just come. You know? Just drop the web of lies, okay? All right. So that's one issue, which we're over it, right? The second issue is that he is friends with Nadeal. So Nadeal is a very, very bright guy, and he's, you know, as you know, going to be a rheumatologist and one of my future colleagues. But Neil and Matt have an interesting connection. So their connection is they really complement each other, even in the clinical sphere. So as PGY1s, they were often on call together. I don't know why, because the call schedule usually has one person on call, but for some reason these guys were always together. And they can talk each other into believing whatever course of action they are taking, incorrect as it may be, that it is the right thing to do. So Nadeel's like, well, I'm going to put these pacer pads on the patient. Okay, yeah, well, the nurse just told me they're really expensive. Okay, well, maybe we shouldn't. All right, that sounds good. Let's not do that. And then they see a patient with VTAC. Oh, did you see that? Well, yeah, but it was just for a few seconds. You know, I heard that you really don't have to do anything. No, it's good. But what this is they are the perfect colleagues for each other, because that's what every doctor needs. You need someone who, when you do something like that, they say, oh no, it's fine, I just ran into someone. They told me they do that all the time. Yeah, everybody needs a doctor buddy like that, and that's what they are. So, it's really just with the VTAC and everything, I was a little bit worried, but you're not going into any specialty where there's any emergencies, right? Like, nobody's going to bleed or anything like that, right? So, Matt worked with me in rheumatology a lot, and rheumatology was really popular, and I don't know why, everyone was saying, oh, rheumatology is really popular, Mala, did you hear that? Yeah, why is this popular? I was like, I don't know why is it popular, maybe the whole world has just gone mad. And anyway, so he's steered away from rheumatology, and now he's going over to the dark side. Do you get it? This is where the Star Wars things come. So the dark side is gastroenterology. And gastroenterology is the dark side, and I'm not insulting gastroenterology because you guys love the guys on the dark side. I know you do. You love those characters. That's why everyone. And then they have Death Star, or what we have is Kidru, right? So Death Star had this one thing, like you could only, am I correct? You could only get into it like this one way. But Kidru, you can ring the doorbell and they will let you in, which is really, really nice. And you have Darth Vanner working with you. Lord Hookie, where's Lord Hookie? You have Chancellor Patterson, yeah, and Admiral Ropoleski. And is there a Wookiee there too? No, there's no Wookiee there. So what does that make you, Matt? That makes you Anakin Skywalker, right? You are the Anakin Skywalker of internal medicine. And he turned out just fine, right? In any case, what you are, Matt, is you are a gem. Now, a gem has its own... A gem has its own inherent value and richness, but when does a gem really shine? A gem really shines after it's been tumbled, after it's been cut a little, and then cared for by caring people. And that's when a gem really shines, and I know that's exactly what you will do. So I leave you to the experts in GI, and may the force be with you.
All right, I'd just like to start by saying thank you to Dr. Janajan, someone who's just as short as I am, so I don't even have to adjust the mic today. Actually, I think I have to turn it up a little bit. I'd also like to say I'm roasting Nick Wolno tonight, and I'd like to say screw you for doing a better roast than I'm probably going to do for you. All right, so we've spoken a lot about nicknames tonight, and as we know, nicknames are most often awarded to and not chosen by the recipients. They can be based on a person's name or various attributes, and given their frequently offensive nature, they're often used only behind said person's back. We've heard a few of them tonight, man bun, to the CTUC senior resident as 007. That 007 was none other than Woolno, Nick Woolno. Over the years, I've heard of other residents called 007, but that was typically for their license to kill, discharge to Connell 11 reputation. Nick, however, has been dubbed 007 for his international man of mystery persona. When you think of James Bond, there's a few things that spring to mind. Relentless charisma, a dapper appearance, fast cars, and a signature cocktail. And really, after speaking to his lovely wife Rebecca, I have discovered that Nick is really no different. Nick can really turn on the British charm. Or should I say the faux British charm? You see, Nick was actually born in Canada. So I am not really sure how genuine this British accent really is. Nevertheless, he has used his good manners and charm to extort LCBO gift cards from elderly patients, something that he brags about a lot. And you know, it only took 12 years for that British charm to convince his lovely wife, Rebecca, to concede to marry him. Nick also dresses impeccably and pays a lot of attention to grooming. Apparently, there are no suitable Canadian clothing stores or tailors. Dr. Woolno travels regularly to Hong Kong to replenish his custom tailored shirt, a blue shirt, and linen trousers. That's right, Nick won't call them pants, they're only trousers. And I see tonight you strayed from the blue shirt and trouser combination, but well done, you look good. For the first 2 years he lived in Kingston, I also heard that when he wasn't flying to Hong Kong, he was routinely flying to Vancouver to get his hair cut. Because it seems that he would not allow anybody in Kingston to cut his hair for fear that they may ruin his perfectly coiffed side part. But recently has conceded to allowing namesake James Brett only to cut his hair. Nick's expensive tastes don't end with Vancouver haircuts and Hong Kong tailors. During medical school, he spent a good portion of his student line of credit buying a vintage Porsche 911. The car is affectionately named Paddington, and Nick keeps it stored in Vancouver because heaven forbid it should ever see snow or salt or be exposed to the Ontario climate. Nick also has a go-to cocktail that he can call his own. It is not a dry martini that is shaken, not stirred, but rather a Singapore sling. He loves to make Singapore slings, and whenever he hosts company, he usually accidentally adds too much gin. Unfortunately, this can lead to some overindulgence and prolific vomiting, including into an air vent at the Medical Alumni Center at UBC, the back of the bus on the way to the resident retreat this year, and then most often in his own bathroom sink. All kidding aside, Nick is kind and a compassionate resident, and it has been a pleasure to work with him over the past 3 years. He will be joining the respirology program here at Queen's, and we wish him all the best in his future endeavors.
Okay, we're almost there, everybody. The bar is filling up, I can see. Okay, I get to do Zhejiang, who's also known as Jerry, apparently. Did anyone here know that? No. Yeah, his mates in New Zealand call him Jerry. Anyway, Jerry is his Anglo name, because Zhejiang, as you probably know, is really Chinese, Baron, happy. So born in Wuhan, central China. And I looked that up. It said a small town in central China. It's like 10 million people live in Wuhan, which is a town we've never heard of, right? Anyway. So I'm not sure why, but Zhejiang's family decided to emigrate to New Zealand when he was age 12. And he managed to pick up a distinctive Kiwi accent pretty well. And no, it's not the same as an English accent, right? You get asked, right, where are you from? Oh, English, Australian, South Africa, and they all sound the same. No, they don't sound the same. They're very different. Aren't they, Nick? Imposter. He is an imposter. Anyway, so I have three themes for Zijing, so it's kind of hard finding stuff about Zijing. So family, first. So family said that he's loving and caring and patient, and he always has to listen. I'm like, oh my God, like Petrov's after him too, right? So stop. It's all those things, but because of his cultural background, he has great respect for his elders and the young. Where that leaves the middle-aged faculty, I don't know. But probably have no respect. But he's best friends with his 80-year-old grandmother and his 10-year-old cousin. I thought that was kind of cute. Anyway. He's a creative cook at home and prone to outbursts of loud, tuneless singing, apparently, so maybe we'll be privileged to that. But his one fault, according to his family, is that he's actually quite vain. So apparently any time they go out, he'll insist on washing and styling his hair before he'll set foot outside. The trouble is, no one can tell the difference. And they haven't had the heart to tell you this, but I said I would do it for them. So just don't bother, just go out, it's fine. And the other reason he's vain is every time he goes back to Toronto quite often, because that's where his family's from, and he always asks them the same question, and it's, do you think I'm gaining weight? There's only one answer to that. We all know you look just the same as when you arrived here. His friends, on the other hand, are very protective of him, but think that he is a little bit naive. So there's two good examples of this. The first is that when he was in high school, I think he took a job as a part-time librarian. Is this true? Because he was conscientious, reliable, quiet, hardworking, perfect, like I can see him doing that job. The trouble is he worked for them for 12 months before he realized he hadn't been paid. So Dr. Archer, he's the perfect future faculty member. He's not going to complain about a thing, right? You can get him to work like 24 weeks of CTU and not pay him. It's perfect. The other cute thing about it is his friend was once out with him. This is at uni, like university. That's what they call it in New Zealand, uni. He was out at uni for a night out and decided to go to the cash point machine, and he needed to get some money. So he put his card in, took out $20, and then he pocketed the $20. Then he put his card in again, took out $20 more, put it in his wallet, and then put his card in again and punched it. His friend's like, what the f*** are you doing? It's like, it's a lot quicker to take out $60 at once. And Zijing, who's like 22 at this time, said, no, but it just says it gives out $20 bills. True story, isn't it? Couldn't make it up, could you? Anyway. We made this guy a chief resident, can you believe it? Anyway, and then I asked the chief residents, because nobody else would give me any info, I asked the chief resident, what have you got on Zijing? And they just sent me photos, which you can see later on. They didn't give me anything else. But apparently Zijing doesn't like alcohol. But if heavily persuaded, Scott, responsible for most, if heavily persuaded, said, I'll only drink one thing, and guess what that is, right? Do you like beer? No, I don't like beer. Do you like wine? No, I don't like wine. I actually just like tequila. Zijing, let me give you some, if you don't drink, tequila is not the thing to start with. It's like, apparently he says it would taste nice and warm. So anyway, he went on the chief resident retreat representing Queens. I didn't know this. We sent them to Toronto representing Queens. And what does, I never heard this story till now, right? What does Zijing do? He decides to have a few shots of tequila. And apparently there's photos to prove it later on. But he becomes like a very handsome but stiff, unresponsive Asian man. And he just sat there, apparently, in this same posture for the whole, where attractive female residents from other schools would sort of drape him around themselves and take photographs. And he was completely oblivious to the whole event until Queen's hosted the chief resident event this year, when some of the same said women came up to him and said, do you remember remember. Here's this photo of us together in the bar. And he had no clue about any of them at all. Anyway, just to finish, Jing, we appreciate your kindness, sincerity, honesty, and dedication to patient care. We're delighted that Jing's staying with us as one of our GIM fellows. And Scott had two things he wanted you to be able to do, is to be able to handle half a pint of beer at the end of a year. So hopefully we've been able to manage that. Come up and get you.
Okay, you guys, this is it. Let's just say Nadil was not the chief resident. That's clear. I spoke to a few people, the usual people you'd suspect, and also Lisa, thank you, the girlfriend, at least she was his girlfriend up until about now, and Austin, his lovely mother, and let's just say they all threw him under the bus. Let's start with his mom. She didn't really know what information I was looking for, but she got to it pretty quickly. She said, there were problems pretty early on, actually. Like, it was like grade 3 or something, and my husband and I were both engineers, so we had pretty high expectations, and he was coming on with these marks, like they marked out a 10, and he was getting like 6, 5, even some 4s. And not only we were appalled that our son was getting these marks, but he thought they were just fine. They were ashamed. Finally, they sat him down and gave him a talk. She didn't tell me specifically what she said. I think actually now we should find out what the words were, but she figured they put a fair bit of fear into him. He turned things around pretty quickly, got up to like some 9s, even some 10s. They were happy. I did not have the nerve to tell her what's been going on around here. So maybe the nice way to put it is Nadil has developed some very creative energy conserving techniques. And that's a good thing. We need to conserve our energy. One mantra that can be heard fairly regularly is, I'm really busy in the D4. He can even be heard saying that when there's one patient in D4, and Barry Chan already rounded on that guy earlier today. One other strategy is when you get the page, just page your R2 to that number. They'll sort it out, more free time for you. Any consults can be directed to clinical clerks and R1s, and that's coupled with another mantra. It'll be a really good educational experience. The only pages he actually responds to are the ones that he initiated himself to page himself out of academic half day. Those ones he gets up promptly and responds to, which really is about going to the Connell 6 Lounge and having a nap. Other energy conservation techniques occur at the gym. Lisa gave me a full email, and really I could have just read the whole thing because it's hysterical, but I didn't want to plagiarize that. Nadil and Joey Del Paggio like to work out at Good Life. It's really quite a joke if you ever see it. They stand around chatting for a while. Then suddenly they randomly go from machine to machine for a few minutes, doing a few exercises, and then they call it a day. After a year, I have noticed no discernible muscle mass change. Again on the elite athleticism, Nadil also thinks he's a big shot cyclist. Just recently, Nadil said he would be doing a big bike race. I show up at the finish line in downtown Toronto, all excited to watch him. First, a horde of 8-year-old girls on pink bikes zoom past. I must be in the wrong place, I thought. No, then emerging around the corner, there's Nadil, all decked out in his tight biking outfit, on a $4,000 bike with the heart monitor strapped on. She waited for the girls to pass and then congratulated Nadil. He still has the participation medal shown in his apartment for everyone to see. What else do we have here that I don't have to delete? So I have worked with him a few times, and now that I've done this research, I understand where he was all those times that we were working. I remember I remember being distracted by the shoes. Like I was listening to him, but I couldn't listen because I was looking and they looked like mahogany or something. They're really fancy shoes. And of course they're fabulous because more research has gone into those shoes than any scholarly activity has done. Apparently Google is a really good source for some of these things, but anyway, I won't go into that. But back to Lisa's email. She does give me a few more concerns she had. Well, one is the research that he's doing is actually for his online shopping. He prepares himself before studying with online shopping. When he's taking a study break, he does some more online shopping, and to reward himself after accomplishing minimal studying, he does some more shopping. Some of that's with Matt Wu, where they pretend to study together. She secretly worries that he might actually be a girl. His New Year's resolution this year was, and I quote, to simplify my wardrobe. His favorite movie? Pretty Woman. I've watched it tons of times. He recently told me unabashedly. So she kind of thought that all this lavish shopping and attention to detail was really going to pay off quite well for her, but not so. She thought at least his loving girlfriend must receive an endless array of lavish gifts. But one night in particular, I recall I was wearing a fancy dress and heels, looking forward to a nice meal for our date. Nadil took me to the Dollar Tree on Princess Street. We purchased 3 packs of instant noodles and a box of chicken broth. So there I was in checkout in my Ralph Lauren dress at the Dollar Tree. The best part was when the total came to $4, he said, "Whoa, that is way more expensive than the Dollarama next door." Well, only the best for you. But I could tell he secretly wished he had gone to Dollarama. I'm getting flashbacks to Sharif with that Habitat. I really do think we're being a little bit too harsh on Nadil. We might be confusing laziness with energy conservation, work-life balance, and well-being. I think he's done a fine job. He looks great. Maybe you should just reflect a little bit on what your mom talked to you about back in grade 3 and transfer a little bit of your energy from shopping to your scholarly activities, and you're going to have an excellent career and make us all proud. And from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank you for whatever the hell you've been doing around here for the last
3 years. Enjoy the evening.